everyone! Today I will be discussing how I took notes in medical school. So I'm going to keep it really simple here. There are so many ways to take notes in medical school. Here's what I did. For certain lectures, I decided to pre-read. Pre-reading basically means that you are reading through the lecture slides before having that lecture. A lot of times medical schools will post their lecture slides before the actual lecture occurs. So for example, if I have lecture at 10 a.m. tomorrow, I will take a look at the lecture slides for tomorrow, today, and I'll go through all the lecture slides. That's pre-reading. Just reading through those lecture slides before you actually go to lecture. There's also pre-note taking, which means taking notes on those lecture slides before actually going to that lecture. I did that for some of my lectures, not all of them, whenever I got the chance, and it basically helps me to recall the information. There are different types of learners. There are visual learners, there are kinesthetic learners, there are people who prefer discussion-based learning, but I like to write things down because I find that when I do, I'm able to recall the information much better. So I took notes on the lecture slides before actually going to lecture. And then when I went to lecture, I added to those notes when I needed to. If the professor stated something that wasn't in my notes, I would add it to my notebook. Or when I wasn't pre-reading or pre-note taking, I would take notes on OneNote, which is kind of like a note-taking program. You can upload your PowerPoint slides and you can type wherever you want on those actual slides or outside the slides. That's basically what I use. A lot of people use many different things. Some use Word documents, some use PowerPoints, some purchase fancy programs, but hey, OneNote worked for me, so that's cool. But hey, OneNote worked for me, so I stuck to that. Now, what I did after lecture, when I got together with my study buddy, was that I would go to the study lounge where the school provided us with huge whiteboards, and on those whiteboards I would write down the day's notes. So this would be the second time I'm writing those lecture notes down if I had pre-written my notes. And I'd write down all the important information into bullet points and also draw diagrams, create outlines and maps and draw pictures, whatever I needed to do in order to help me recall and understand the information much better. And the reason why I like whiteboarding so much is because you can put all of that information into one place. You don't have to scroll through lecture slides, you don't have to scroll through Word documents or even your OneNote. You can just see it all of the information in one whiteboard. And what I would also do, I mentioned in another video, is use Boards and Beyond videos to improve my knowledge on certain topics. For example, if I wanted to hear someone explain a topic in a different way or provide more information on it or just give me some more clarity, I would use Boards and Beyond videos. And I'd listen to those videos and take notes on the videos that I'd watched, and I would add those notes to my whiteboard. So the whiteboard would contain some of my Boards and Beyond notes, my lecture notes, and sometimes even first aid if I had the chance to look over it. So all of that information in one whiteboard. And then I'd go over that whiteboard with my study buddy, or I would say whatever I wrote on my whiteboard to myself. I find that when I'm speaking, it helps me to remember that information, similar to when I'm writing things down. I would memorize the entire board and say it to myself without looking, and my study buddy would also quiz me and ask me questions based on what was written on the board, and I would answer without looking at the whiteboard. At the end, I would take a picture of the whiteboard and save it on my phone. In the morning before lecture, I'd grab one of my little mini whiteboards. It was about this big, and I'd write down everything that I remembered from the previous day's whiteboard onto the little whiteboard, just the main points. And then I would check back at the whiteboard picture in my phone from the previous day, and I would make sure that I got everything down. I wouldn't do this for every single morning, but just when I got the time to, because that way I'm kind of testing myself to see what I remember and what I don't. And for what I didn't remember, I would go over it again. Sometimes I'd split the whiteboards up into sections, so it's like one section of the whiteboard has bullet points on a certain topic, then another section has bullet points on a related topic, but it's still different. And I would go over each section to myself. I would say it to myself, and then I would check the whiteboard picture I have on my phone to make sure I got everything from that section. Then I'd move on to the next section without looking, say everything that I wrote from the previous day. Then I'd check, and I'd make sure that I basically got it down. The whiteboarding part itself helped with understanding and also memorization, because in medical school, memorizing and understanding are both very important. So that's essentially how I took my notes in medical school. And this is just for lectures. For studying for the Step 1 exam, it was different, and you can check out my How to Study for Step 1 videos on that, and that has some helpful advice on how exactly you should study for Step 1 and how some people take their notes for the Step 1 exam. But for lecture specifically and to pass the medical school exams that the school administers to us, this is basically what I would use. And I found it to be quite helpful because I did it consistently every single day, except for the pre-reading and pre-writing and the whiteboard recall. That was only when I felt like I really needed to or had the time to. And in terms of histology slides, so medical schools, they provide you with a lot of different illustrations, like what certain specimens look like histologically or microscopically, or even gross specimens. I would go through the lecture slides on my OneNote and I'd look at the histology slides really carefully, look at all the structures, and then I would name all of the structures without looking at the labels for that structure. So for example, if I was looking at a histology slide of the kidney and it was labeled as glomerulus and tubules and proximal convoluted tubule, look at that very carefully and then go through all of the other histology slides for all of the other structures that were presented in that lecture. And then I would go back to that slide and I would cover the labels or just not look at them, and I would name all the structures: glomerulus, tubules, proximal convoluted tubule, and then I'd uncover the labels and make sure I got it right. What a few students did was gather all of those histology slides and compile it into one large PowerPoint presentation. So that PowerPoint presentation only had all the histology slides, and then the students would manually cover the labels so that when you start the PowerPoint presentation of all the histology slides, the labels would be covered, and then you can press enter and each label would uncover itself and you could see if you got it right. So I think that was great because all of the histology slides for the first year were in that one PowerPoint, and you can just go through it during your free time or when you had to study for an exam. So that's pretty great too. I would actually recommend that because it could help with Step 1 studying for histology or even for gross specimens, things like that. So you have all of those pictures in one huge PowerPoint or two huge PowerPoints. That's pretty good, and you can go over that during your free time during medical school too, so it doesn't feel super overwhelming opening it up at the end for the first time in a long time, if you know what I mean. So yeah, there are so many different ways to take notes in medical school. You can check out some of the other YouTube videos that people have posted to get a better sense of what different medical students do, because again, there's so many different methods that you can use. But I suggest in the first semester of medical school, try different things out and see what really works with you and stick to that. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I am here to help. And please do subscribe to my channel. I really would appreciate it. Happy studying!